Coming up in This Week in Computer Hardware, NVIDIA's GTX 1050 is coming. OCZ's VX500 SSD, iPhone 7 faster than a MacBook Pro, and a 23-pound water-cooled laptop. All that and more coming up next on TWiCH.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiCH.
Bandwidth for TWiCH is provided by CacheFly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is TWiCH, This Week in Computer Hardware, episode 381, recorded September 15th, 2016. GTX 1050 and a 23-pound laptop.
This episode of This Week in Computer Hardware is brought to you by Zipcar. Zipcar is the largest car-sharing network in the world. Turn $25 in driving credit. Visit joinzipcar.com/twit. And by Grasshopper. Stay connected and run your business from your mobile phone with Grasshopper. To save $50 on your order, visit trygrasshopper.com/twit.
Welcome to TWiCH, This Week in Computer Hardware, TWiCH weekly show that aims to bring you the most useful, most informative, most helpful, most delightful, most charming, and yes, ladies and gentlemen, most PC-centric this week, although we got a whole bunch of mobile stuff coming up, hardware news. Mr. Ryan Shrout joins me, as always, from Florence, Kentucky. How are you, sir?
Doing well. I've been spending the last several days painting the new office, trying to get it to a state where we can begin moving things over. I hate painting a lot. I hate it a lot. And we went with like, hey, let's duplicate what we have here. You can't see what we have here, but it's like, it's gray on the top. It's like a navy blue on the bottom. And then there's like a green, like an 8-inch green stripe along the back, basically matching kind of like the site design stuff. And it was like, yeah, we should do that again. Only last time I had somebody else paint that when they were putting this office together. And this time I was like, well, let's save $2,000 and do it ourselves. And then you have to get laser line levels and you have to balance it and you have to tape along all these. It was not great, but we're getting there.
We're getting there.
Yeah.
You know, it's the slow, ugly process of moving in. Oh my goodness, the slow, ugly process of GPU availability. It's interesting. Digitize has an article. PC Per quoted it. NVIDIA stating the obvious that 1080, GTX 1080, 1070, and 1060 graphics cards are, quote, seeing strong demand from the market and are therefore currently in tight supply. So apparently, to make things easier, NVIDIA is going to release a fourth GPU, the GTX 1050, which will presumably replace the 950 in their lineup. You know, and you know, the secret quote there in the middle of the Digitimes article is basically that graphics cards players, including Asus Tech Computer, Gigabyte Technology, Microstar International, and Colorful, have all been aggressively striving for more GPU supply from NVIDIA, and their profits from the graphics card and shipments are both expected to reach new highs in the third quarter if they can get chips to sell. You know, do we expect to see the kind of, I mean, I assume we're going to see the kind of bump in performance over the 950 that we saw. Yeah, I mean, are you excited? Do you think this is going to ease you know, are they releasing a fourth card because they want to distract people from the fact that the other three cards aren't really available?
No, I mean, the 1050 has to exist in order to compete against the likes of the AMD RX 470 and 460. It was a card that you always knew was going to come out. The issue I have with NVIDIA's kind of lower end parts is that I would say in the last handful of generations, like the 950 compared to the 750, and then maybe like the 650 compared to the 550, those types of things, like there wasn't as dramatic of a performance delta as I would like to see. It wasn't as much as the high-end cards saw. You know, like with the 1080 seems like a dramatic improvement over the 980 and the 1050. And maybe it's just because law of percentages, if you're running at lower frame rates, you know, the changes are going to be a little bit lower. So I don't have a whole lot of excitement built up for this part, but it will serve a very particular and very specific and useful purpose in terms of feeding that price market that they need to be competitive against those AMD parts. But yeah, I haven't heard of anything from NVIDIA about it. They haven't started talking about it. If it's something that's coming out, sometimes when they get to these low end parts, they would do like OEM only releases. I don't think this is that low end that they would do it. So I assume they'll do sampling and they'll do reviews and they'll do all that other kind of stuff that you would normally expect. just I don't know, in the next 15 days or so, if these rumors are to be believed.
We wait with bated breath. More cheerful news, AMD obviously a huge resurgence. We're looking at the possibilities, or we've been examining the hypothetical performance of the Zen processors that are going to come out next year. But it's been a year since AMD put together the Radeon Technologies Group, which is essentially a subdivision of AMD trying to produce better GPUs faster. And I think the releases this summer indicate they have. This is exciting. The Polaris graphics architecture is launched, 14-nanometer FinFET process, the RX 400 series, Radeon Duo Pro, Pro WX, Radeon Pro SSG for professionals. They've got like 101 FreeSync design displays on sale right now. The Radeon Crimson Edition brand, 21 driver releases since they launched that. This is nice. These are all wonderful things, but I think the big deal is that they've gone from like 18% of GPU sales in Q2 2015, and Tim Very points this out in the review or the article on PC Per, and they're up to 30% as of Q2 2016. So that's a doubling, not quite a doubling of their performance. That's huge. Are they, how is AMD doing overall? Because we've been nervous about AMD and whether or not they were finally going to die off. It seems like they've reversed their performance situation in terms of both sales and actual video card performance.
Yeah, I mean, they've clearly done some really good things, right? The market share is kind of the end all be all. All the other stuff is just kind of icing on the cake. And it's important to point out that like they're very specific here about the Radeon Technologies Group and focusing on what it has accomplished and not AMD as a whole, because AMD as a whole is still struggling a lot because of its CPU divisions.
Right.
And there's still a lot of room. There's still a lot of places that the Radeon Technologies Group, the Radeon brand, needs to improve on, right? Keep in mind that the top end card we have is the RX 480 with 8 gigs memory that only has an MSRP of like $229 or $239, supposedly. That being said, like they don't have anything that's competitive really against a 1070 or a 1080 or anything above that, and they need to do that. But that's that's a beginning of 2017 type a timeline for them. So it's good for them to talk about the Radeon Pro Duo and the Pro WX series and the SSG stuff where it's like solid state graphics. It's really still kind of a prototyping type product. They're going in the right direction, and there's a significant amount of stuff that's happened in a calendar year. It's hard for sometimes it's tough for us to remember that it has only been that long since kind of the big shift in people who are in charge of the Radeon Group, that type of thing. And while it seems like it has been forever, a year is not a very long time in terms of business development, right? And being able to create new products and create new brands and do all these types of things. So they deserve some credit for picking stuff up and doing interesting things. And Raja has done a fantastic job with that. And at the end of the day, the number that matters the most to them is that market share number, right? Because that equates to sales, equates to profits, equates to customer base being grown, those types of things. So it's good to see for them to be pushing in that. And yeah, curious to see what the last 3.5 months of 2016 have for them. I don't know if we're going to be quiet for a while on the GPU side, or if things are going to get busy and exciting again.
Busy and exciting. I have a feeling it's going to slow off. I don't know. I feel like it's going to be slow for a while until 2014. Or 2014. Wow. Yeah.
If we have to wait until it to wrap around again, it's going to be a long time.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, that would be bad. Until the clock resets to 0 and starts over again. Wrong. Yeah, I'll just roll back on that one. I don't know. It's I keep seeing stuff moving forward and moving backwards simultaneously. For example, the more I think about the PlayStation 4 announcements last week, where, it's not a particularly huge boost in performance because they basically don't want to create, separate, gaming streams for 4K titles and 1080p titles. And they didn't put a UHD drive in the box. and probably that has a lot to do with Sony having, a 4K UHD streaming service. It's currently only available for Bravia TVs.
Right.
I would not be shocked if that 4K UHD streaming system suddenly showed up on PlayStation 4 consoles after they get the HDR patches in place on those. Which brings us into an interesting, or maybe brings Sony to an interesting conundrum, because the majority of households in the U.S., a huge number of households in the U.S. cannot support 4K UHD streaming.
Yeah.
I just feel like we've got a lot of stuff that's moving forward, and a lot of stuff that seems to be kind of running around in circles until next year. The PlayStation 4 consoles kind of 4K, but not really 4K. I'm curious to see what CES, looks like. I'm also really curious to get eyeballs on the PlayStation 4 VR stuff. I don't know. We also may be more interested in VR than the average user is, but that may be because it's just so exciting once you get that giant thing strapped to your head with your cable running across the middle of the living room, which I think everybody will laugh at next year,
right?
Or 2 or 3 years from now when it all goes wireless.
Yep.
Oh my goodness. SSD prices have not yet hit Ryan's goal of 10 cents per gigabyte.
No.
He has not released a new 5 cents per gigabyte goal. But OCZ's back. OCZ, who went down in flames, was bought by Toshiba, revived by Toshiba as a mainstream market. We've talked about Intel 600p, which is something that should be on your short list if you're looking at an M.2 drive, either an upgrade for your laptop, or if you have a desktop with an NVMe capable M.2 slot in it. Because of the performance improvements in NVMe, with one caveat, the benchmarking that Alan did on the 600p indicated that if you're doing massive 120 megabyte per second file transfers, or massive file transfers at over 120 megabytes per second, you will saturate the cache on that SLC TLC combo drive, that 600p, and performance will drop like a stone, which is not a positive. But the nice thing is, for the vast majority of users who aren't, say, capturing huge amounts of sequential video files, the performance on that 600p is phenomenal compared to the average SSD, and it's 30 or 50% less than NVIDIA's N50 Pro NVMe drives, depending on which size drive you're looking at. So, 850s are reasonably priced. We've seen Crucial coming out with some affordably priced drives. And now Toshiba is trying to get into the mid-priced or low-priced SSD, or back into it with the OCZ VX500. So 128 to 1 terabytes, 550 to 515 megabytes per second, max performance, 92K or 65K for read or writes, which I assume is going to be talking about IOPS in there. Which is nothing compared to, say, OCZ's RD400, which is hitting 210K or 140K IOPS, but still, decent SSD performance, and will still spank any rotating media hard drive in your life. Ryan has not, or excuse me, Alan has not had a chance to get hands-on with this, but Hardware Canucks has a pretty intense, detailed review. And, they ended up giving them their damn good and damn good value rewards, which if you've never seen those, you should definitely go to hardwarecanucks.com on the last page and scroll down, because they're the awesomest badges you could possibly put on something, at least if you're a fan of Canadian humor and, and beavers. This is cool. This is, probably not cool if you're Samsung or Intel and want to make a lot of money off of drives, which is the whole point of being a corporation. But they are now suddenly playing the Vizio role in the HD TV market, which is to offer a lot of value at a very, low price for the industry, which is going to push the entire industry down in price. I'm curious. Are these shipping currently?
I think they are. They are going to be very shortly. I know Alan has these in, and they're being run through some testing currently. I think they might even be hooked up right now. And I can check real quick, see if they actually showed up for sale.
Not on Amazon.
VX500s. Not on Amazon yet?
And I'll check
Yeah.
Newegg.
Yeah. Because, you know, they're, again, with SATA drives, it's, you kind of know what you're going to get performance-wise most of the point. It's all about kind of that cost value. Yeah, I don't see the VX500 showing up at all. I do see some VX500 projector lamps on Newegg, but no SSDs based on that.
Right.
And based on the pricing that we saw earlier, it's
right.
It's pretty impressive. It's good to see. And OCZ / Toshiba kind of rebuilding their brand a little bit on it. And
Right.
yeah, I think probably by next week when we talk again, we'll have a review up of that one. So we'll be able to give you Alan's thoughts too.
No, that one I want to hear Alan's thoughts too. You know, I'll be really curious to see what the street pricing is like, because I assume the 30 cents to 34% per gigabyte number that they're quoting on Hardware Canucks is based on the MSRP, or I brazenly assume.
Right.
You know, and the Crucial MX300 is around 25 to 26 cents a gigabyte. So it'll be interesting to see where that pricing ends up.
Right.
So, oh my goodness, we have more stories. Including, ladies and gentlemen, more router activity. Or wireless network extenders and network adapters. It's Actiontec's MoCA, WCB6200Q, and ECB6200, which are a mouthful, dude. What Chris
yeah. So the idea of MoCA, for people who aren't familiar with it, it stands for something that I didn't know: Multimedia over Coax Alliance. And the idea is pretty simple. It is basically running data over your in-house coax wiring. So chances are your house or apartment, many of the rooms are already wired with coax wire for cable, right? That's how you get your satellite and your cable TV service into the different rooms and stuff like that. These adapters use a standard for data connectivity, or communication rather, over those existing interfaces that allow you to do some interesting things. Now, chances are, if you have a whole home DVR system today, either from DirecTV or any of your cable service or satellite service providers, if you have one DVR in the main room and you can watch those shows in other rooms, you're probably already using MoCA. You're probably already using that technology to get the video from your main DVR to your other set-top boxes.
Mm-hmm.
And this kind of extends that to just generalized networking. So, for example, if you want a hardwired connection in a room that's further away from your router than you would like it to be, you don't want to run, or you can't run Ethernet because either you're renting or you don't want to drill holes, you don't want to go into your attic and all that type of stuff, you can use these MoCA adapters and these coax to basically extend your network out. The picture that we're showing right there is actually of the wireless extender that also builds in 2 LAN ports on it. So not only does this act as a network extension for wireless to improve kind of your wireless signal and integrity and all that type of stuff, but you can hook another PC up to it, or you can hook up a switch up to it and then have a whole bunch of PCs, right? So the idea is kind of the same there. That adapter does have 802.11ac, 5 gigahertz and 2.4 gigahertz, and it does run at up to a gigabit speed on the network connections. And it's pretty close to Ethernet speed in Chris's testing. In that. And then the second device, if you scroll down a little bit more, the bonded network adapter is actually how you get your network into the coax cabling to begin with, right? So your router with your internet connection that already exists is kind of sitting there. You hook this up to one of the ports on your switch, and then you run the coax cable to the wall. And it has a place in there, so if you only have one coax connection and there's a TV by there, you can pass it through, and it doesn't interfere with your TV signals at all. And this basically puts out the network across your coax connection, and now you can go to any other room in the house that has coax already run to it, and connect things up that way. So, and you can actually use this, I believe, and go the other way as well, where if you just want to have one hardwired connection there, you can use that as well, rather than getting the whole wireless extender type thing. But it's an interesting idea, right? Like if if your router's upstairs and you want to do wireless stuff in your basement, well, maybe you have access to a coax cable in the basement already. You could run that wireless extender there. It's not cheap. It's like $160 for that particular Actiontec adapter. And then boom, you've extended your wireless network down there. You should have pretty good throughputs and performance and speed based on the testing that he's done. It's pretty easy to set up. And it's kind of I would consider this and Powerline networking to be kind of cousins in the how do we make networking easier for consumers with stuff they already have. You already have electrical wiring in your house. Maybe you already have coax wiring in your house, and should be good to go. Now, my experience with Powerline networking is that they almost always die due to power surges. I think I went through like 4 sets of Powerline networking before I finally gave up on it. But this seems to work pretty well. Latencies are good. Performance is good. Signal strength obviously is improved when you move a wireless router, essentially access point, closer to your devices. So not cheap, I guess. I think $169 for the wireless extender, $99 for the kind of adapter. But it's an option out there. And this will work, any size house that you have, as long as you have coax run through it, it should be fine.
There you have it, people. We want to thank one of our sponsors. This episode of This Week in Computer Hardware is brought to you by Zipcar. Zipcar is the world's largest car-sharing network, operating in over 500 cities, towns, colleges, and more than 50 airports around the world. Zipcar provides a cost-effective alternative to car ownership. Zipsters only pay for the time they actually use a vehicle and have no responsibility for additional costs. Drive cars by the hour or by the day with gas and insurance included. That's nice. With Zipcar, you'll have the freedom to choose when and where you want to drive. Zipcar's self-service vehicles are available on demand and conveniently located reserved parking spots in your neighborhood. Reserve your Zipcar in minutes, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week by calling or visiting the website. You just book the vehicle of your choosing, unlock your selected vehicle with your Zip card. Zipcar offers over 50 makes and models of cars that range from environmentally friendly hybrids, EVs, and PHEVs to luxury vehicles, SUVs, pickup trucks, cargo vans. So finally, you got something to carry that couch back home without having to borrow a friend's truck. You'll have the option to choose the make, model, type, and even color of the vehicle you want based on the needs of each trip and the available Zipcars in your area. Reserving, accessing, and using a Zipcar is as easy as getting cash from an ATM. And car sharing is good for the environment. Zipsters reduce their personal CO2 emissions by between 1,100 and 1,600 pounds per year. For wheels when you want them and $25 in driving credit, go to joinzipcar.com/twit. That's joinzipcar.com/twit. And we thank Zipcar for their support of This Week in Computer Hardware.
Very cool.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, it's always fun to see like little Zipcar parking areas all around the city.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I could take a Zipcar. Well, I'd have to, rent it properly.
Just sign up. There you go.
Break the window, hotwire the car. Not the right way to do it. Crazy story came up on during Fireball this week. As we're recording it, is the day before the general release of the iPhone 7. Lot of interesting early reviews from people with early access on them. One of my favorite ones pointing out that the telephoto lens on the iPhone 7 up on PC Mag is not a telephoto lens. It is a 56 millimeter lens, or the equivalent of a standard kit lens, the one that comes in the box with your average DSLR. It is not a telephoto lens in the sense of offering you, multiple increased magnification or lengths there, and that in terms of lenses, it's actually a very short lens, what most people would consider a prime.
Is that semantics, though? Right? Like,
well, it's relative.
There's no specific number that telephoto refers to. It's just a general type. It's like, would it make more sense if you called it a telephoto cell phone camera or smartphone camera, because it's way better than other cell phones cameras? When you get to the pure dictionary definition of telephoto, it's a lens with a longer focal length than standard, right? That magnifies the image. So in a pure definition of telephoto,
the telephoto lens on the iPhone 7 Plus is absolutely a telephoto lens. When you compare it to a telephoto lens on a standard camera, it falls dramatically short. So yes, you know, if I'm 5'6" and you're 4'11", I'm tall. I'm
Right.
still below average for a resident
Yeah.
of the United States.
Understood.
But yeah, you make an excellent point.
It's interesting.
And
I had never even like looked up the term. Wikipedia says it is a telephoto lens of a specific type with a long focus lens in which the physical length of the lens is shorter than the focal length. Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So, you know, overall though, people seem to be extremely excited about the cameras on the iPhone 7 and the iPhone 7 Plus. You know, nitpicking aside about that, watch Series 2 reviews. You know, if you're an athlete, people are excited. If you're not an athlete or somebody in the heavy training, the reviews tend to be less enthusiastic. What was crazy, though, is during Fireball, John Gruber posted, he started looking at Geekbench results for Android devices versus the iPhone 7. And the really interesting part, so iPhone 7, 7 Plus, single core 3450, multi-core 5360. You know, multi-core, certainly the Samsung Galaxies are hanging in there. Single core, there's a pretty huge gap between the iPhone 7 and the Samsung Galaxy S7. But what is really crazy, if you scroll down to the bottom and click, you know, look at the update there, quote, the iPhone 7 scores better on both single and multi-core than any MacBook Air ever made and performs comparably to a 2013 MacBook Pro. And there's kind of two ways of looking at that. Is one, you know, it's Geekbench.
Yeah.
You know, it's not what you would call sort of the end all and be all of benchmarks. Not that I will ever write a better benchmark than that, but
sure,
you know, it's a very specific. You know, it measures CPU, it measures compute performance. You know, it's a very, very simple benchmark. You know, and obviously nobody's going to be like, I'm going to stop editing video on my MacBook Pro, my 3-year-old MacBook Pro, so I can edit on my iPhone 7 Plus. Although I know people who are actively trying to edit 1080p video on phones. They're frustrated, but they can't actually do it even without the power of the new chip. But man, that was pretty crazy to look at. If only from the sense of looking at how much ARM performance has increased in the last 5 years.
Sure. So a couple of interesting comments. One, in that table that Daring Fireball has up, they don't put the 6S in there, which is odd to me, because you would see a couple of things. The iPhone 6S Plus has a single core rating of 2400, which if you look back at those results, is actually, you know, still above a Galaxy S7 single core performance, right, by a significant amount. And now the iPhone 7 and 7 Plus are well above that. If you look at the multi-GPU score in Geekbench of the iPhone 6S Plus, it's 4028. So it's actually below all of those Android phones except for the OnePlus 3 down there as well. So couple of comments on that. One is the multi-core performance of the iPhone 7 is up dramatically over the 6 because of you're going from 2 cores to 4 cores. Although even though it's too little and too big cores, although they're, you know, Apple's not really branding it like that. Single core performance, however, is where I think it's most interesting. Like clearly single core performance is still where the vast majority of the user experience stuff happens.
I was thinking about that during the presentation because they were like, yeah, we got 4 cores, 2 high power cores, 2 low power cores. And if they're doing that because they have a very good reason for architecting the chip that way, which is that nobody needs all 4 cores, or very few people need all 4 cores jamming at 100% to do anything.
Agreed.
Which sounds so much like the video game industry building games for PCs.
It's one of those, you know, all the other cell phone companies other than Apple have released phones that are octa-core and all that type of stuff. And it's interesting for some use cases, but for not very many. And at the end of the day, the user experience of like doing everyday things, interacting with your phone and the responsiveness of it is very much a single threaded bottleneck. And you know, Intel says the same thing about laptops and stuff, right? So there's a reason why technologies like speed shift are meant to get the clock speed of a single core up to its peak as fast as possible for when you're interacting with a touchscreen or when you click on something and you're scrolling or whatever. Like those are the times where you feel the performance delta, as opposed to if you're doing something long form, long term, where you need kind of the multi-core side. The last thing I'll say, I've seen this touted about in terms of like these Geekbench scores are higher than some laptops, some MacBook Pro, or not MacBook, MacBook Air devices in the 2013 MacBook Pro. They're not faster than those processors, right?
Right.
What you need to look at is like Geekbench is a very synthetic, on the core only algorithmic test. It does not take into account your memory subsystems, local storage, and all that type of stuff. So it also doesn't test your GPU really at all. And a large portion of what Geekbench does is it uses an AES encryption style test for that, which mobile processors getting updated more frequently have like really, really fast dedicated hardware for some of that type of stuff, which will artificially inflate their relative score compared to a lot of other things. So people who, I don't know, we have, this happens every time we get some kind of like brand new chip in the cell phone market. We're like, oh, finally, if I just take my iPhone 7 and plug it into a dock, I don't really need to have a laptop anymore. I'll just be able to do that. And it's really not the case, especially if you take into account memory bandwidth and graphics performance. And those two things are very dependent on what your performance can be. Yes.
No, I'm with you. I just thought it was a fascinating thing to kind of dissect.
It absolutely is. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Apple late last night issued a statement, says TechCrunch, setting expectations for those who hope they'd be able to walk into an Apple store on Friday and pick themselves up an iPhone, which is clear that there ain't that many iPhones in the Apple stores. So don't be shocked if you walk in there and can't get one tomorrow morning. Apparently also the jet black iPhones and all iPhone 7 Plus models in all colors have sold out completely in the initial online ordering period, and that none of them will be available in store. So, heads up, you might not want to get up at 6 a.m. Well, maybe you do want to get up at 6 a.m. and try to 4 a.m., 3 a.m., 2 a.m. To wait for an iPhone, but it's probably a bad idea.
Yeah, I had to wait till 3 a.m. to order my phone. And even then, I still didn't get the color I wanted because the system kept like, I don't know, it wouldn't accept my billing address for my credit card or something to that effect. So I went back and restarted it on the app, and then the matte black finish was not available anymore. I don't know.
Right.
It was a nightmare. This is interesting to me. Is this the first time that they have been very particular about no in-store availability, or very, very limited in-store availability?
Well, certainly very, very open about it.
Yeah.
I think they probably logistically, it was probably easier for them to do direct sales. It's the thing that struck me about the announcement is like they made the announcement, and then, essentially, a week and a half later, orders are off and running and they're shipping. So obviously, I think that's in deference to the fact that iPhone 6S, 6S Plus sales had been flagging for quite some time. And so I think they figure anybody who's not willing to order it online is probably willing to wait a couple of weeks to buy it in the store. I would not be surprised. I would love to see the percentage of in-store sales versus online sales. It may just be, if we're cutting, if it's 15% of their overall sales in the new phone model, they may not care if they cut that down to 10, because the vast majority of the action is happening, with the giant planes full of iPhones are streaming into the United States from China as we speak, which is always kind of a frightening thing to contemplate. But I did, however, I upgraded to iOS 10, and that got my Lightning headphone adapter up and running, and I will be dissecting.
Oh, you already have one of those. Okay.
On Tech Thing next week. Well, I kept thinking for the money of an iPhone 7, I could buy a new camera.
Oh yeah.
and probably get a
Nice
lot more
one.
use out of it. I was a little worried when I first loaded OS 10 because I thought like, oh, this is why they've done all the changes in OS 10. It's going to make your iPhone 6 feel incredibly slow. But then as it sort of settled in and I think things started to cache, performance, actually I've been surprised at how good the performance of iOS 10 has been on the phone. So, getting used to the interface changes is always a transitional period, but nothing deal breakery yet. Although the weather app showing the wrong city was driving me completely insane. I fixed that. So yeah, I'll be gutting this to find out if they're passing analog over the jack or if there's actually a DAC and a headphone amp in this little tiny cable. I don't think so for $9, but I want to know. LG, Huawei, Motorola confirmed no new Android Wear watches in the fall of 2016. Despite releasing one in September 2015, hinting at a lack of enthusiasm from customers, says CNET. This is, we talked about a couple of the announcements last week, right? IFA was just all over the place. Yep. And a lot of the big manufacturers are all over delivering new high-end phone models, new mid-range phone models, but smartwatches do not seem to have a lot of traction right now. I think that's the short version of it. So if you're thinking about buying a smartwatch, you probably can look at the stuff that's currently out there, and that's about all you're going to get. And as I mentioned earlier, the reviews on the new Apple Series 2 watch are mixed. Lots of good stuff if you're an athlete. Probably not a compelling upgrade unless you have some particular app that is bound by graphics performance or processor performance.
Right.
Oh, my goodness. This episode is brought to you by Grasshopper. Grasshopper is a virtual phone system designed for entrepreneurs. Grasshopper works just like a traditional phone system, but requires no hardware purchase or software installation. With their iOS and Android app, callers can reach you anywhere you are on your mobile phone. Grasshopper allows you to keep your existing number so you can maintain your brand. And when you make a call, your client will see your Grasshopper caller ID instead of your personal phone number. How nice is that? Just select a toll-free or local number, record a custom greeting, and add multiple extensions for your business. Toll-free numbers are great for marketing, and they make your business sound more professional. Set up department and employee extensions with custom call forwarding to any phone in the world. Get voicemails emailed to you as audio attachments. You can also send and receive SMS text messages from your business number. Join the over 250,000 Grasshopper customers today. Plans start at just $12 a month. That's affordable, people. And you have a 30-day money-back guarantee. It is a pretty slick concept. And you can turn your smartphone into a business line with Grasshopper. To save $50 on your order, go to trygrasshopper.com/twit. That's trygrasshopper.com/TWiT. We want to thank Grasshopper for their support of TWiT and This Week in Computer Hardware.
Indeed.
It's a pretty slick concept.
Yeah.
If you've ever had to deal with setting up phone systems, this is an area where I think virtualizing it all is the perfect concept. Just saying. Oh my goodness. Man, this thing is a beast. Until you compare it to sort of some of the standalone toaster devices. Asus ROG GX800VH water-cooled laptop review. They are excited about this. I don't know how else to describe this.
Got a 9 out of 10, whatever that's worth.
Yeah. I mean, 18.4-inch 4K IPS screen, dual GTX 1080s and SLI. Is this sounding like a certain 17-pound laptop we saw a couple weeks ago?
Yep.
Core i7 6820 HK running at 4.4 gigahertz in turbo mode. If you want to feel emotionally traumatized, the GX800 has dual 330-watt power bricks. That's two power bricks.
Pete's.
Yeah, as I was looking at I've got a gaming laptop, a sub-$1,000 gaming laptop in here review, and we were all giggling about the size of the power supply. But a single large power supply is nothing compared to a pair of 330-watt power bricks. Yeah. The water cooling covers the CPU as well as both GPUs. 3 Toshiba NVMe drives in RAID 0, which ought to make Alan highly amused and or slightly panicked. RGB mechanical keyboard, with mech tag switches. You know, it's 45 millimeters thick. It's 5.7 kilograms, which means this is not something you're going to want a really nice backpack to carry this around.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is crazy pants. Is it water cooled? You know, the thing that kind of fascinated me was looking at the giant thing at the back of it, the overclocking system, the GX600 hydro overclocking system. If you take a look at that, that is the part that had me just phenomenally amazed. In part because, you know, I thought it was like Razer's desktop box where that's where the big GPU is. But of course, with the GTX 1080s, you've got much more powerful available inside there. But keep clicking, and you'll see dual fans, radiators inside
Dual
of that
radiators,
thing.
yeah.
A couple pictures next to there. This is a pretty crazy piece of engineering.
Yep.
When you look at that, because you've got like. So look at all the water lines inside of there. And then if that red spot in the middle to the left and right are essentially valves, and to the left and right of that are two alignment pins. And that whole thing snaps together to bring the serious water cooling to the back of your machine. If you click one more over, you'll see the giant port or collection of ports. There it is. That thing is crazy. That is the scariest port I have ever seen, or collection of, I mean, literally, those are liquid cooling ports and two giant pins to keep it from snapping off while it's connected to your laptop.
Yep.
This is a lot of work.
Sounds like a good idea.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's a lot, because when you look at, if you start looking at the performance benchmarks with the liquid dock versus the the air cooled on the GX800 VH, the deltas are kind of minuscule. You know, 855 versus 802 on Cinebench, 4851 versus 4928. You know, on PC Mark 8. Things get a little more compelling when you get to like 3D Mark benchmarks. That's where they can really turn up the 1080, the two 1080 GPUs. At that point, you're looking at like 37374 for graphics versus 307044 on the air-cooled version. That looks like a big number. That looks like it's closing in on 30%. What's that in terms of like sort of real-world frame rates?
Oh man, I can't really say. That's too game specific. Right. I mean, this is a 25 by 14 display on there, right? So
no, I think it's a 4K.
Oh, is it? Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah,
there might be a couple games
at 4K.
On it,
yeah, well, the 4K is available, and certainly you can power 4K off of a pair of 1080s. Yeah, 18.4 inch 4K display.
You absolutely can. Okay. Yeah, I mean that's going to be more than enough to get you over 60 FPS on almost any game, right? So adjusting image quality settings, of course. And you know, some games will scale better with SLI than others. You always have that caveat when you're talking about multi-GPU systems, whether they be notebooks or, you know, notebooks or desktops, really, for that matter. So I would like to have this machine, but I wouldn't want it. They also, if you look at the end of the review, they don't even know the price of it yet.
Right.
One of the cons is that the cost is likely to be stratospheric, which is probably not just likely. It's probably very, 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 very yes.
Well, the other thing to put this into context, you know, we're looking at 13 kilograms. The laptop weighs 5.7 kilograms. All up, right, with the laptop, the dock, and the two power adapters is 13 kilograms, which is 28 pounds. The bare laptop is 12.5 pounds. Each of the power adapters is 2.8 pounds. So obviously, this is something where you're going to be taking it to, you know, LAN parties, or perhaps you're doing some crazy engineering things and you figured out a way to justify buying one of these for your engineering project. But you know, I don't know if you would enjoy the laptop experience, or using this on your lap.
Right.
You know, the other thing is we're looking at they're estimating it at let's see, 5,000 to 6,000 British pounds, which would be approximately 6,600 to 8,000 US dollars. So obviously, you know, this is not quite as bad as Sennheiser's Orpheus headphones at, you know, $58,000 for the marble bass DAC / amp and headphones, but this is pretty crazy expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I won't be signing up for it.
I missed any battery life numbers on that. In fact, I don't even think I saw a battery in it.
Weird.
Oh my goodness. Thermaltake Core P3 is gorgeous. If you've been, you know, pining for the days of wall-mounted artistic PCs, this is pretty cool. 120 bucks. Yeah. Full review up on hardocp.com. It's pretty.
It can take the only thing I caution with these types of cases, you need to be a little bit more cognizant of what components you're putting into it, right? Because any, like, I don't know, mismatches of color or style or something like that will stand out pretty dramatically if you're going to actually wall mount something like this. But when you do it all correctly,
or my horrendous cable management,
right? Yeah, like if you do any of that type of stuff, it's going to, you don't get an opportunity to hide any of it, and you can still run the cables behind the system, behind the case, and you know, do all that type of stuff, which, you know, I'd expect you to do so that it looks good and decent. But you know, like, this is the type of thing where it's like, okay, I actually want my RAM to match
sparkle
the motherboard, right? Or I want the video card shroud color to match the motherboard and that type of stuff, right? And this is where maybe the benefit of some of those RGB components comes into play, whether it be motherboards or video cards or LED headers on some of those Asus motherboards. And I think they even have somebody's got to make RGB memory. I don't know if they do or not.
I'm putting a link in right now. Corsair's Vengeance.
Okay.
It's pretty epic. Vibrant LED lighting, superior overclocking. Features a sleek, precision-engineered light bar to keep your high-end components coordinated. So,
well, clearly I need that.
I think you are the target market for this.
Need to keep everything coordinated for sure. I mean, somebody who's buying this case is what that target is, right? Like, without a doubt. So,
available in blue,
cool
red,
stuff.
or white. So if you're doing an orange color pattern inside your PC, you might be very upset.
Gotcha.
Just letting you know, man.
Sure.
We've been seeing shots of the MSI VR1 backpack PC. Jeremy wrote it up for PC Per. I have a couple friends that are pretty deep in the world of VR, current VR hardware, and it's been interesting to watch their reactions to this. You know, it seemed to either be really excited or really irritated. How'd Jeremy feel about it? Because it's essentially a full PC in a backpack.
It's basically a laptop minus a screen and keyboard. Like, it's just the internals.
With a harness.
Yeah. I mean, it's probably clocked a little bit higher just because it definitely has an odd look to it. I mean, you can see, like, if you look at the picture that has the back of it, the vents are on the kind of like back by your shoulders.
Right. That'll be great for audio. It'll keep your ears warm on cold days.
They say it only will produce 41 dB under load.
That's cool. Okay, that's quieter than the typical background noise in an office, to use a random dB comparison.
Right.
Considerably quieter than a typical conversation.
There must be large enough fans and high enough airflow that they could keep things running quiet. The two things in the bottom, left and right, are actually removable battery packs. Like, so you can actually run it with both. You can run it with one. You can hot swap one while the system is up and running, and you don't have to shut anything down. You know, it's interesting to see, like, they've got the USB ports along the top that would basically be at, you know, the bottom of your neck. That's where you would plug in your, you know, HTC Vive. And I don't see it in the pictures anywhere yet, but there obviously has to be a place for you to plug in the HTC Vive, like the base station.
I think it's kind of a slot to the left side of it. It's kind of hard to tell because they don't have a lot of the cable on there. Kind of goes in on the left side by the left backpack strap. 8 pounds, 3.6 kilograms, which is 8 pounds. 1.5 hours of battery life, or excuse me, 1.5 hours of full speed gameplay. So you're going to want to, hopefully they'll be offering additional battery packs for people who are very serious about wandering through their house in full VR.
I'm curious about like logistics of this being, how do you get from your desktop, like Windows desktop, to turning on the Vive Steam VR and like putting on the headset, right? Are we far enough along that like you can just put on the headset and boot the system and you get Windows and then you start Steam VR?
What they do is they have the
MSI.
They built one-click VR and Shift, which is they basically built what they call their Dragon Center.
Okay.
Quote, this software not only permits users to monitor the hardware status and details from your cell phone, but also allows adjustments and managements of unique MSI gaming features. And then, there it is. Basically, it auto-detects. No, it's not. It sounds like it's actually setting up to make it easier, but it looks like it's just a customized version of their performance software. False alarm. My confusion.
You still have to like click something to start the VR headset. So we'll see. No idea on pricing. No idea on availability. It's not going to be cheap. I can tell you that much.
Yeah.
Much like the other mobile device we talked about.
So many expensive mobile devices. Getting more to something more affordable. Cooler Master MasterLiquid Pro 240 liquid CPU cooler. Is it a worthy competitor to all the stuff we've seen from Corsair?
It is. It's actually a fairly competent part that is priced a little bit lower than the Corsair H100i GTX. It has performance a little bit better than the Corsair H100i GTX, and it's quieter as well.
I like how the cooling block, is that the cooling block in there?
It is. It's cooling block plus the pump. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yep. They claim to be using the square fin design and that improves the efficiency and airflow and all that type of stuff. And we've seen a lot of, yeah. It's an odd name, the Cooler Master MasterLiquid 240, right. But
you do have to fill this one after you install it in your machine.
Oh, really? Okay.
Well, I see the MasterLiquid Pro. Maybe that's the instructions and not the actual liquid itself. Is it?
No, I think it's I think it's pre-filled.
Okay. Now I just noticed because it looks like it's empty in that picture.
Okay. Yeah.
I was looking. It looks like it's empty when it's installed.
Yeah, I agree. Now, Cooler Master has in the past had options. They've come pre-filled, but they had the ability to add fluid to them or to add components to them.
Right.
I do not believe that is the case with this one, though. So I'm not a fan of the tube design either, like the kind of ribbed style. It seems a little old. Something braided might seem a little bit more modern, a little bit more in line with that stuff. But performance-wise, noise-wise, it seems pretty good.
I like the fact that the nice thing about the ribs is they keep the tubes from collapsing as you route them around things. But the rib design, but yeah, they also catch on things as you move them through there.
Right.
Are they actually spraying it on the water block, or are they actually pumping liquid across the water block? There it is. Yeah, we grabbed technology from top-end DIY cooling to create a powerful pump that sprays liquid directly at the center of the water block, solving the issue of slow flow. Also allows us to mount even more ultrafine fins on the copper base, creating even more surfaces from which the coolant can take away heat. So it looks like it's actually not. It's not. I was envisioning like this sort of misting environment inside there, which made no sense from thermals. So,
right.
Interesting. It does look so empty in those pictures, though. Huh.
Yeah, I mean, you may just be seeing the pump, and all the fluid stays contained below it. Maybe you just see the pump spin underneath it. I don't have video of it, so I can't say for sure.
I don't know.
Yep.
PC Perspective Gold Award. Cooling performance is very solid. Looking at it under stress, it's 58.4 Celsius, which is right there with the H100i GTX. And in quiet mode, it's like 54. So that's pretty nice. Performance is good. and $129. Excuse me, $119 is a pretty good price for a liquid cooler that is delivering quality performance.
It's 10-20 bucks less than the Corsair H100i GTX, and it has comparable, if not better, performance and acoustics than that as well. So, you know, both are fine options. It's just a matter of, I think the Cooler Master is slightly better at this point.
I found it. There is a user accessible liquid refill port on the top right corner of the radiator. They do not want you to touch it. It is a closed cooler. It is sealed at the factory. Nice. I missed that paragraph.
Okay.
Sorry, Sebastian. Sorry, audience. Oh my goodness. It just looks so empty. I'm just not going to say that again. Speaking of empty, we have run out of news this week, which is probably not surprising given the crazed volume of hardware releases over the last couple of weeks. I will let you guys know what I find inside of the little cable, and I've got Dell's new 34-inch curved monitor in. I have fallen in love with the desktop monitors. I think I may actually like them even more than 4K monitors. This one's running at 3440 by 1440, and I know people who want sort of full 2180 are going to be frustrated by the missing pixels, but I've really enjoyed using triple columns on a curved monitor. It works phenomenally well, and it's a lot less expensive. Although the newer 4K monitors, 4K desktop monitors have gotten considerably more affordable in the last year, so that's a big plus. Anything you can tease that's come up on PC Per?
Other than like more painting that I have to do, I have in a ton of MSI notebooks based on Pascal. So we're going to do another kind of series roundup on here's all the differences between them. Here's your performance deltas between them. Price yourself accordingly. I don't think I have anything up in the $6,000 to $8,000 range in yet, but you never know. I don't know if they sent me any of the Titans with the mechanical keyboards and the 18-inch screens or whatever, so we'll have to see. Hopefully I get one of those in at least. But that's kind of our goal here.
Just make sure it gets delivered to the new office so that you don't have to carry it from the old office.
Oh no, that definitely won't happen. Everything like everybody is shipping everything in the next 2 weeks, well before we have to move everything. So I just have to rent a truck, put it in the back of a truck, drive it 1.6 miles, and then take it back out of a truck. So
that's a plus. That's exciting. A big plus. With that, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to put a lid on it. We are going to cap this episode of This Week in Computer Hardware. I'll be seeing you all on the new screensavers this weekend on Twitch, and we hope you come back to see us next week. twit.tv/TWiCH is the place to find the shows and the RSS subscription links and iTunes and all that other good stuff. And if you want to tweet directly at Ryan Shrout or at Patrick Norton is the place to go. You can find Ryan's work at PCPer.com. Probably not his painting work, but his actual product testing work. And you can find my work with Shannon Morris on TechThing over at TechThing, TEKTHING.com, or AVExcel.com is the show I do about home theater with Robert Heron. Speaking of which, Scott is going to be getting his home theater on shortly, so we have to get out of the studio. I'm Patrick Norton.
I'm Ryan Shrout.
We'll see you next week on Twitch.